No respect.
All right, Lions fans, it is November 15th today, 2023. We're going to talk about Dan Campbell's press conference today. We're going to talk about news, notes, and quotes, and there's a few interesting things that popped up today. And there was a few exciting things that popped up today, in my opinion. And that was about how Dan Campbell really feels about these Chicago Bears. So we'll get to all that in a moment. But first up, let's talk about the news, notes, and quotes from today. As you may be aware, there's been 6 roster moves over the last 48 hours. And they're names that I don't think anybody had on their radar, but that's okay. These are primarily depth guys. But first up, we'll talk about Vaitai. And look, man, this is a tough one because Vaitai has been placed on injured reserve, which typically means you could still come back. But in this case, I don't think that's going to be possible. And I don't think Dan Campbell really felt that way, or he did feel that way too. And, what Dan Campbell said is this, and this is when he was asked about Vaitai going on IR and if he would be able to come back. And just so you're aware, all of the quotes today are paraphrased. I chop it up a little bit. I try to make it a little cleaner to read. And that's because Dan Campbell likes to use so many of these same words and a lot of added words that it doesn't really make for clean sentences when I try to repeat it. And I don't want to sound like a 2-year-old trying to talk, because some days I do anyway. So here we go. He said, I think it's probably unlikely, but I don't want to never say never, but I would say it's probably unlikely. Look now, he's been unbelievable. He really is. And I mean, there's nothing easy about the injury that he's, had to come back from. And then he had the knee. And he's been rehabbing, this thing for a long time. He's put in a ton of work, and that's just not easy. It's not easy at all. But, he's the type of guy that if you ask him how he's doing, he always says he's fine. But that's just him. But no matter what I told him is that we want him around here. He wants to be around, and he's still very much a part of us. And for me, that's the toughest part of this. And I guess before I go on any further, basically what this means is Dan Campbell doesn't think Vaitai is going to be able to come back from this. So he's not on, injured reserve, like permanently season ending, but he is on IR. But this is a tough one for me because Vaitai has been such an amazing player. He's firmly, a big part of this culture, this identity. And he's been a huge part of the transition that the Lions have undergone over the last few seasons. The locker room presence in and of itself, I think, is going to be the biggest hit to this team. Outside of, what he was able to do on the field when he was healthy, and now knowing that we're really probably never going to see our true 5 starters ever hit the field again, for the offensive line. And we'll always wonder, just how good could they have been? So look, he's given everything to this team, and it sucks to see, such a good guy exit this way. And I'm sure that this is the last hurrah for Vaitai. His season's most likely done anyway after this season, whether he was healthy or not. He even debated coming back, but he did it for his guys, man. He wanted to come back and have one last hurrah with this offensive line. It speaks volumes about who he is, man. It really does. But next up, the Lions had 5 additional transactions where they released Anthony Everett, Divine Ozigbo to make room for offensive guard Michael Schofield, cornerback Kendall Vildor, and defensive end Bruce Irvin. They were all signed both yesterday and today. And we'll start first with Schofield. The Detroit Lions had signed Schofield to the practice squad on Tuesday. He finally looks to be back at full strength and healthy after he was carted off in January with a knee injury while playing for the Bears. He'll serve as guard depth right now for the Lions, of course, after Vaitai is now on IR. And look, he played in 113 games during his 8-year NFL career. He appeared in at least 11 games per season. So pretty tough cat. Someone that's fairly dependable. And he has great experience. So I think it's great that the Lions are making these types of moves right now when we're headed into, what should be very fun and very difficult playoff season. So we need all the help we can get. We can't take any more injuries. and we need to finish healthy. But at least if, we do lose somebody, they're putting guys on this roster that can step in with experience. Second guy we'll talk about is Kindle Vildor. I do not know much about this guy. I am going to have to watch some tape today. But he was waived by the Bears in August. He was picked up by the Titans and then waived again in October. And then he was picked up by the Eagles. He was finally released by the Eagles just this Monday. He started 21 games for the Bears in the past 2 seasons and racked up 80 tackles. He appeared in 2 games this season for the Titans. So again, somebody that has experience. He's played in at least what appears to be, 22, 23 games or something like that in the past couple seasons. And again, somebody that we might have to lean on if, we get thin. The good news is we're fully healthy right now. We're still waiting on a few guys to come back. So things are shaping up for a late season push for the Lions to get healthy at the right time and to be playing the best football at the right time. Lastly, Bruce Irvin, defensive end, officially added to the practice squad today. He racked up 3.5 sacks and 9 quarterback hits in 11 games for the Seahawks last season. He is 36 years old. He's been in the NFL for 11 seasons, and he racked up 55.5 sacks and 343 tackles during his career so far. So somebody that's averaging about 5 sacks a season, about 34, tackles a season. So he's not, the top tier, type of defensive end, but he is a very solid backup and somebody that can produce and, take up some bodies on the offensive line. It'll be interesting to see if he gets into a game or when he'll be utilized. I just hope that he doesn't really have to be utilized. But then again, if he's doing well in practice, he might get a shot. We'll see. Dan Campbell had this to say about all the guys that we brought in and had to release. He said that this gives us some veteran guys that have played some football, and we had interest in them. They have versatility, and that's really what it is right now. Let's just see, where it is. He also said it's hard to find players as the season goes on that you may need. So we added both of these guys. He's talking about Schofield and Bruce to the vet squad. Then he said about Bruce, he said, look, Bruce came in and gave us a little workout yesterday, enough to see where he's at. He's got superhuman genes, by the way. I mean, this guy takes great care of himself, but he's not in football shape. He's in shape, but he's not in football shape. So we need to get him there first, and then we'll kind of see where it goes from there. And he added this. He said, you can never have too many rushers in the building. He's still certainly showed us that he's got a quick first step. He's got power, and he can bend. That's all I need to know. If the guy can still move and he still possesses the strength and the agility to be able to bend, then he will be able to produce in this game. And if Dan Campbell is saying this guy has a quick first step at 36, I believe him. So good moves by Detroit. What say you in the comments? Were you happy about it? Is it something that makes you feel a little bit better that we added a couple of players at all positions that we were looking to add during the trade deadline? I guess I would have much rather have seen, some bigger names, better quality players, being added to this Lions team. But us beggars can't be choosers right now. I'm happy with just us winning games. That's all that matters to me. So on to the Bears was the next part of this press conference today, where Campbell had said that he said this. He said, I'd say that they're at full force, and this is a formidable opponent. So, we got our hands full. We got to be ready. Got to be ready to go, and this is day 1 of it. Like I said earlier to start this video, I found these next few quotes kind of interesting. And Dan Campbell believes that this Bears team is a really good opponent and a tough opponent and somebody that we shouldn't be sleeping on. And he's right. I mean, they've added some phenomenal pieces of this team between the last offseason and free agency and the draft, the trade deadline. I mean, they've done it all. Quite honestly, they've done way more than the Lions have. They've been way more active. But the Lions started building through the draft first. And that's just Brad Holmes' way. He then said, I mean, they've got weapons across the board. Sounds like Herbert will be back and Foster's running hard. We got a dose of him last year at Carolina. So we know what he is. Fields and his ability to run under duress makes him extremely dangerous. So look, man, we're not walking into a game that is potentially a laydown. in no games in the NFL are really a laydown. And you know, I can't tell, is this Campbell just kind of saying these things because that's just what good coaches do, right? They prep like you are a Super Bowl team and they want to make sure that everything is taken care of, you know, soup to nuts. And that's great. I'm glad he has that mindset. And I'm glad that he's instilling that mindset into the players. I just hope that we don't get burned, because the next part of this, you know, these next few quotes and some things that he had to say makes me want to go watch tape now. So in talking about keeping the players in line and ready, he said, look, just go watch tape. That's it. And put all your focus in this tape. And you tell me what that tape says, because the tape validates everything. So he's seeing something in this tape with this Bears team that doesn't reflect their record right now. And I think that we understand that as Lions fans, because last season we were 1-6. And I was probably one of the only ones that said, we still got a shot. We can still make the playoffs. We can still do this. And yes, I do keep receipts. It's all on videos like this. So I'm not counting the Bears out. I just feel like it's a little bit too late for them to make a rush, you know, at trying to do anything for playoffs. I could be wrong. And I've been wrong many times before in my life, but that's my position and I'm sticking to it. But Campbell wants us to know that this team is not just a bunch of slouches. He said, this team plays hard. They finish. They've got some dudes on this offense and defense. They've got some players now. This is not the same team we played last year. Look, we had some trouble with the Bears last year. Sure, we won the games. Maybe they didn't appear as close as what the score did or didn't. But Fields put the hurt on us in the first game. The second game, we held them a little bit more into check. But now you're taking that element of Fields and you're adding these other players around him. You're adding a pretty good defense that can get you some stops. You've added some weapons on offense that can go out and really make a long day of it for you. Campbell's goal of the game, he said, look, we got to play a clean game. We got to study. This may take the fourth quarter to finally get this one done, but so be it. We got to do what we got to do to win this game. And I think we're going to do what we have to do to win this game. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. I think the biggest component to this press conference is where he was talking about Montez Sweat. And when he was asked about Montez Sweat, he responded like this. He said, they got length, they got size, and they got quickness. They move a ton. It's just a stunning defense with a ton of different looks and coverage-wise. I think when you're able to play multiple coverages, you have length. You play with speed, and you can move it. It creates problems. If we can't handle their movement up front, it'll be one of those long days for us. This team plays hard, and they finish on the football. This will be a test. More importantly, on Montez Sweat, he said, I think he's already got 10 pressures since he's been with this team. His power and his length really shows up. I just go back, to this again. He's a heck of a player. But you know that we've got two pretty good tackles too. So I'm glad that, Campbell comes right out and says that, look, I ain't scared. I know what I've got for bookends here. Hell, just go look at our tape from what they did last weekend against Mack and Bosa. Shut them down. So we need another performance like that. In terms of winning the division, right, making the playoffs, Campbell didn't mince words at all. He said, look, if you aspire to win the division, you have to win your division games. That's the bottom line. I said before, we got to assume that they are not going to lose out until we see them again. They've won 3 or 4 in a row. They keep getting better. We got to keep winning. We can't worry about them till that time shows up. And then he also said that this reminds me of when I was with the Giants in 2000. And the Eagles were just kind of coming into their own. And Andy Reid and McNabb were coming into their own with Andy Reid, and McNabb was in his second year. And we were winning. We went 12-4 that year, and we win, they win. And then we'd win, and then they would win. And then we'd win again, and then they'd win again. And I think that they were 11-5. But, I mean, they were just, it was just back and forth. back and forth, played them 3 times that year, played them in the playoffs too, and it was just nonstop. You know, it was back and forth, so it's going to come down to one of those plays and one of those games, and you just got to keep winning. And then when the time comes and you play that opponent, man, you got to win those games. So that's it. Look, Dan Campbell is not going to stop winning just because. You know, just because they can afford to drop one, he doesn't want to. He wants to win out. He's expecting his team to show up. He's definitely expecting his team not to sleep on some of these opponents that haven't been having the greatest of seasons, because we were that team last season. 1-6 to finish 9-8 is an incredible feat. But who's to say that we're the only team that can do that? Because we would all be fools to think that that's the case. So let me know below in the comments. You tell me, do you think that the Bears have a chance to really turn it around? Number 1. Number 2, do you think that the Vikings are going to start presenting a threat and go on a winning streak? They kind of already are. Do you think that the Lions, number 3, are going to have a tough time towards week 16 in solidifying this division and wrapping up at least the number 2 seed with how some of these other teams are playing right now? There's some teams that are doing some things right now that have not been expected because of how they played in the beginning of the season. The Broncos being one of them. And you know, with the Broncos and the Bears and the Vikings all doing a little bit something different right now than they've done the last 6-7 weeks, means that there's 3 potential games that the Lions, you know, could have some difficulty with. And we still have to take on the Cowboys in week 17. So we have 4 games. If you really look at the schedule, there's 4 games that the Lions could struggle with. And that's not going to be enough to probably get a 2nd seed. Might be enough to win the division, but it's not going to be enough to get us a home playoff game, I don't think. So we'll see. That's all for today in this video. We're going to be doing a new content series. It's called NFL 101. And the goal behind this series is, and this is kind of a running joke. I mean, I'm not trying to be sexist or anything here, but all too often, you know, your girlfriends or your wives or just a casual football fan, they ask you all the questions. What does this mean? What does that mean? And then, you know, you might bring some of them to a game and they just don't understand it. And they're constantly asking you questions. And I thought, well, maybe it's time for us to go and start explaining some of these things, put it together in a content form, and put it out there on YouTube so that you can direct your wife or your girlfriend or your mother-in-law or your mom, whoever, to, hey, watch the videos. You're going to learn the very basics from the beginning and explaining all the formations, you know, both sides of the ball. It'll be a lot of information. But, hey, for the casual fan, doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, for your wife or your girlfriend that maybe just asked too many questions and you just want to push them off onto us, go for it. We'll be more than happy to help them learn. And we're going to utilize the content that's been prepared, you know, for us. The NFL has done an excellent job at making things available for future fans. And I believe that's why they did it. They want to keep us as educated as possible. And our goal every year is to do more content with the latest and greatest rules changes. And we'll probably do some additional content that breaks down some of these questionable calls and how the rule was supposed to be applied and how it wasn't applied, or how they got it right or got it wrong. But first, we're going to start out with series number 1, Meet the Offense. And that should be coming out in the next 24 hours. So NFL 101, Football Explained, for the casual fan, beginners, and women who just want to know more, will be available right here on Rockdown Podcast Network in our playlist, NFL Explained. All right, y'all. Hope you all have a wonderful day. And as always, go One Pride, go Detroit Lions. And until next time, take care.
Wants to throw it to Sewell. He caught it. He stole the first down. Oh, yes. The big man dives down the 31-yard line. Oh, that is beautiful. Fields looking, pressured, hit from behind, taken down. Aiden Hutchinson got him.
No respect. So, you know, we look like we're ready. This is day one.
No respect.